Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
G'day, Nils Vesk from Innovate or Die. Welcome to this series where we're going to be looking at ways that you can bring commercial innovation to your organisation and your business for great commercial gain. So you might be thinking, innovate or die, what a serious topic. Well, the reality is, unless we're innovating, we're either competing on price or we're playing catch up, trying to chase our competitors as they go out and capture the market. And innovation is such a crucial key element that we all need in our businesses today. And when I've worked with organisations around the world, there's one common problem that I find, and that is that there are too few innovations and they're just too far apart. And the number one cause behind all of this is our biased perception. The bottom line is the way that we've been taught to think about innovation has skewed the way that we think about innovating and the ways that we can come up with new ideas. And that can either be a good thing or a bad thing. And in each one of our episodes, we're going to be unpacking a model called innovation archetypes. Because if we can understand the biases of the most amazing professional innovators and use their best principles, then we can use that to create great commercial gain in our own organizations. So let's quickly unpack each one of these archetypes and phases so you've got an idea of what we're going to be doing in each episode. And so we have universally 4 phases of innovation when it comes to it. We've got the investigation phase, ideation, iteration, and commercialisation. The investigation phase is all about looking for insights as to where we should be applying our thinking to generate brilliant ideas. The ideation phase is all about coming up with lots and lots of great ideas. And then this iteration phase is all about testing, piloting and prototyping our ideas so we can minimise the risk while increasing our certainty. And finally, we've got the commercialisation phase. This is all about taking our idea, building it, and then selling it to the masses so we can get a good commercial return. And each one of our episodes, we're going to unpack one of these expert archetypes so we can borrow and model them to get some great commercial results. So let's get ready to rock, innovate or die. Welcome to Innovate or Die. My name is Nils Vesk and I'm the proud presenter of How to Innovate Like a User Experience Designer for Better Customer Experience. Now, some of you right off the bat might be thinking, what's a UX designer? Well, a user experience designer, probably most people would have some affinity with, comes from the world of the digital space. They're the kind of people that stop you from punching your computer by preventing horrible mistakes from happening. If you have that experience of wanting to punch your computer quite often, it probably means that the products or the process or the apps that you've been using haven't had the experience of a user experience designer involved. And there are 3 really cool things that user experiences do is they're great at designing ways to make things better, good at testing products, and also identifying where there might be problems that happen out there. I reckon the motto that we really want to borrow from the user experience designer is simple as. It's about making the complex simple. Simple enough that a 7-year-old or even a senile 80-year-old could use a product to make things done. And even though I've started off talking about digital, user experience is used in physical product design as well as in service experiences. And there are more and more customer experience or user experience personnel in happening bigger organizations that have got the funds to do it. And one of the really cool things about it is some really commercial value in that. So what are the 3 core commercial reasons why we should innovate like a user experience designer? Well, the first one is that they know how to convert customer frustration into customer satisfaction. And I'm sure we all know that if we've got a satisfied customer means a happy customer, they're probably likely to buy more and to tell more people about it. It's a win-win situation for our business. This is what user experience designers can do for us. The second commercial reason why we really want to innovate like a user experience designer is that they help, I guess, reduce these frustrated customers and users coming into our world. If we can reduce the frustration, then we can reduce the virus or the virals that go out, the viral messages of how bad a product is or how a service is. I'm sure you might be familiar with the research that if someone's happy with a product, they might tell 5 people, but if they're unhappy, they'll tell maybe 10 or 15 people about how unhappy they are with that service or that product. So we can eliminate that so that we always have more content, satisfied customers. The third commercial reason why we want to innovate like a user experience designer is it helps to bridge the gap. It bridges the gap from the designer of a product or a service to the interpretation and the assumptions of the users, because often there is a big divide between what we have an intention of how it's supposed to be used and how it ends up getting used. And if we can bring that together, it makes for more satisfied and less frustrated customers. And then another really good commercial reason that relates to all of these, I think there was a recent Forrester report that showed that every dollar invested in user experience design results in a 10-fold return of investment. So if you throw in $1 of user experience designer, you get $10 back in terms of the impact, either from better sales or more retention of clients. So if it's good enough for people in Forrester to say it's worth doing, then I think we can use that thinking for our business. So let's get stuck as a user experience designer. And I want to start with a couple of poster childs. Now, these poster childs, I'm very unlikely that you've heard about them. They are professionally famous, but publicly unknown. And there are 2 of them. And the first one is a guy by the name of Don Norman. And Don Norman is a really amazing poster child because he was the first ever user experience designer. He coined the term, and he actually created his own role at Apple. So he was the world's first user experience designer working at Apple. He worked at a number of different organizations and consulted, but Apple realized that they needed to make sure that their products were seamless, that they were so easy to use, they felt intuitive, that people would just love about them. They knew at Apple that if people were frustrated by a product, that they were less likely to recommend, less likely to buy it, and they would put out some negative comments about that sort of stuff. And one of the things that Don Norman was famous for was writing an awesome book called The Design of Everyday Objects. And in this, he talks about how user experience design is a fundamental element for designing products. I'll talk to you a little bit about that later. Now, his partner in crime in the organisation that they work at, which is Norman Nielsen Group, is a guy by the name of Jacob Nielsen. And Jacob Nielsen is known as the forefather of web user experience design. And so much so, I think he's probably got about 40 patents on how to make the internet easier to use. And so they still are at the forefront of user experience design, and every other user experience group out there always look for them for insights. And we're going to borrow some of their strategies and their thinking in some of the work that we share today. So let's get stuck into it. The first thing that's really important about what user experience designers do is they need to identify what the intentions of a designer of a product or a process or a service might actually have. Because again, I might say, for example, have the intention on my slide clicker to advance my slides to work a certain way, but I've got to make sure that we identify them, because how that is interpreted might be a completely different thing. And how things are interpreted is based on assumptions as a user. If I've never had the experience or been exposed to one of these slide advances or slide clickers, as they seem to be called, then I might not know what it is or how it's to be used. I might not know that pushing a certain button is going to make it go a certain way. And so this whole concept of what the user experience designer goes is, we've got to bridge that gap and identify what the customer and the user's assumptions are, and what the intentions of the designer actually are. And when we don't have this match of the assumptions matching the same interpretation and the intention of the designer, then we get a disconnection. And one of the reasons why we have a disconnection is there's been a miscommunication. There's been a miscommunication of what the product does
and how it operates, and there may be a miscommunication of the instructions of how to use it or how to work with it. And we also find that there is a miscommunication in the product itself and how it actually is operating. And to compound all of this, we also have that more often than not there is either a physical or a visual representation of this. And so a good way of seeing or visualizing this is to look at what cognitive behavior psychologists use in forms of communication. So if you can imagine, we've got two different people here, and this might be Diane, the designer, and this might be Ulrich, the user. Just trying to think of a you person there. It's not that easy, not many people with U's in their names. And so as a designer, I've got my intention to go out there. But what happens is my message of how something should be used goes through a filter of some sort. And this filter can be made up of a lot of different things. The filter might be, I've had a bad day, I'm under pressure. The filter might be, I've been building this project or designing this product or service for the last 20 years. It's obvious how it works. I've been biased, I've been skewed, so it goes through my filter. So then when the message or the design or the intention goes out, it can be skewed to what it actually was intended. Then, on the other side, we've got our user. And so our user is also going to have filters as well. Their filters might be determined by the experiences that they've had in the past, whether they've ever experienced a clicker before or whatever it might be, and that's going to skew their assumption, their intelligence, their whole life experience, and their understanding of reading things. And so what ends up happening when we have a bad user experience is the intention is not measuring and meeting the impact that we intended the user to have because of these filters of assumption. And this is a basic tenet of cognitive behavior therapy and psychology and communication. And the reason why psychology is very important is that user experience designers really do have probably three different components to them. They are part psychologist, they are part engineer, and they are part designers. So they're more multiple personality disorder type people than I am. And but this is what enables them to get great insights that lead to great ideas and to great seamless, happy customer experiences. So we understand that this is something really important. And again, as we've got something physical or visual, that interpretation changes as well. And so what we want to do is be mindful of that when we come up with an interpretation as a user, that it's going to be determined by their experiences. And some more psychology for you, actually we'll go some 10 seconds of neuroscience. If we were to look at the brain and to divide it up into three different areas, we have the forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. The forebrain is where we do our reasoning. It's where we have most of the neocortex, where we do our logical type of thinking and processing power. The midbrain is where we, in many ways, store memory. It's where we've got this almost whole data bank of long-term memories that relate to different experiences and the sort. And finally, over here we have either reaction or action. We've got the autonomic response system, which is either a fight or flight response system.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.